Chapter 75 of Dan Brown's Inferno. "I think he's having a heart attack," Sienna shouted. Langdon hurried over to where Dr. Ferris lay sprawled on the floor. The man was gasping, unable to catch his breath. What happened to him? For Langdon everything had come to a head in a single moment. With the soldiers' arrival downstairs at Ferris and Ferris thrashing on the floor, Langdon felt momentarily paralyzed, unsure which way to turn. Sienna crouched down over Ferris and loosened his necktie, tearing open the top few buttons of his shirt to help him breathe. But as the man's shirt parted, Sienna recoiled and let out a sharp cry of alarm, covering her mouth as she staggered backwards, staring down at the bare flesh of his chest. Langdon saw it too. The skin of Ferris' chest was deeply discolored. An ominous-looking, blushing black blemish, the circumference of a grapefruit spread out across the sternum. Ferris looked like he's been hit in the chest with a cannonball. "That's internal bleeding," Sienna said, glancing up at Langdon with a look of shock. "No wonder he's been having trouble breathing all day." Ferris twisted his head, clearly trying to speak, but he could only make faint wheezing sound. Tourists had started gathering around, and Langdon sensed that the situation was about to get chaotic. "The soldiers are downstairs," Langdon warned Sienna. "I don't know how they would found us." The look of surprise and fear on Sienna's face turned quickly to anger, and she glared back down at Ferris. "You've been lying to us, haven't you?" Ferris attempted to speak again, but he could barely make a sound. Sienna roughly searched Ferris's pockets and pulled out his wallet and phone, which she slipped into her own pocket, standing over him now with an accusatory glower. At that moment, an elderly Italian woman pushed through the crowd, shouting angrily at Sienna. "L'hai colpito el petto." She made a forceful motion with her fist against her own chest. "No," Sienna snapped. "CPR will kill him. Look at his chest." She turned to Langdon. "Robin, we need to get out of here, now." Langdon looked down at Ferris, who desperately locked eyes with him, pleading as if he wanted to communicate something. "We can't just leave him," Langdon said frantically. "Trust me, Sienna, that's not a heart attack, and we're leaving now." As the crowd closed in, tourists began shouting for help. Sienna gripped Langdon's arm with startling force and dragged him away from chaos, out into the fresh air of the balcony. For a moment Langdon was blinded. The sun was directly in front of his eyes, sinking low over the western end of the St. Mark's Square, bathing the entire balcony in the golden light. Sienna led Langdon to their left along the second-story terrace, sneaking through the tourists who had stepped outside to admire the piazza and the replicas of the horses of St. Mark's. As they rushed along the front of the basilica, the lagoon was straight ahead. Out on the water, a strange silhouette caught Langdon's eyes, an ultra-modern yacht that looked like some kind of a futuristic warship. Before he could give it a second thought, he and Sienna had cut left again, following the balcony around the southwest corner of the basilica towards the paper door, the annex connecting the basilica to the Doge's palace, so named because the Doges posted decrees there for the public to read. Not a heart attack. The image of Ferris's black and blue chest was imprinted in Langdon's mind, and he suddenly felt fearful at the prospect of hearing Siena's diagnosis of the man's actual illness. Moreover, it seemed something had shifted, and Sienna no longer trusted Ferris. Was that why she was trying to catch my eyes earlier? Sienna suddenly skidded to a stop and leaned out over the elegant balustrade, peering down into the cloistered corner of St. Mark's Square far below. "Damn it," she said. "We're higher up than I thought." London stared at her. "You were thinking of jumping?" Sienna looked frightened. "We can't let them catch us, Robert." London turned back towards the basilica, eyeing the heavy door of wrought iron and glass directly behind them. Tourists were entering and exiting, and if London's estimate was correct, passing through the door would deposit them back inside the museum near the back of the church. "They'll have all the exits covered," Sienna said. London considered their escape options and arrived at only one. "I think I saw something inside that could solve the problem." Barely able to fathom what he was now even considering, London guided Sienna back inside the basilica. They skirted the perimeter of the museum, trying to stay out of the sight among the crowd, many of whom were now looking diagonally across the vast open space of the central nave towards the commotion going on around Ferris. London spied the angry old Italian woman directing a pair of black-clad soldiers out onto the balcony, revealing London and Sienna's escape route. "We'll have to hurry," London thought, scanning the walls and finally spotting that he was looking for near a large display of tapestries. The device on the wall was bright yellow with a red warning sticker. "Alarmar con antincendio." "A fire alarm," Sienna said. "That's your plan?" "We can slip out with the crowd." London reached up and grabbed the alarm lever. "Here goes nothing." Acting quickly before he could think better of it, he pulled down hard, seeing the mechanism clearly shatter the small glass cylinder inside. The sirens and pandemonium that Langdon expected never came, only silence. He pulled again, nothing. Sienna stared at him like he was crazy. "Robert, we are in the stone cathedral packed with tourists. You think these public fire alarms are active when a single prankster could? Of course, fire laws in the US. You're in Europe. We have fewer lawyers." She pointed over Langdon's shoulder. "And we're also out of time." Langdon turned towards the glass door through which they just entered and saw two soldiers hurrying in front of the balcony, their hard eyes scanning the area. Langdon recognized one of the same muscular agent who had fired at them at the trike as they were fleeing Sienna's apartment. With precious few options, Langdon and Sienna slipped out of sight in enclosed spiral stairwell, descending back to the ground floor. When they reached the landing, they paused in the shadows of the stairwell. Across the sanctuary, several soldiers stood guarding the exits, their eyes intently sweeping the entire room. "If we step out of the stairwell, they'll see us," Langdon said. "The stairs go further down," Sienna whispered, motioning to the accesso vietato swag that cordoned off the stairs beneath them. Beyond the swag, the stairs descended in an even taller spiral towards the blackness. towards pitch blackness. Bad idea, Langdon thought. Subterranean crypt with no exit. Sienna had already stepped over the swag and was groping her way down the spiral tunnel, disappearing into the void. "It's open," Sienna whispered from below. Langdon was not surprised. The crypt of St. Mark's was different from many other such places in that it was also a working chapel where some regular services were held in the presence of the bones of St. Mark. "I think I see natural light," Sienna whispered. "How is that possible?" Langdon tried to recall his previous visits to this sacred underground space and guessed that Sienna was probably seeing the lux aeterna, the electric light that remained lit of St. Mark's tomb in the center of the crypt. With footsteps approaching from above him, though, Langdon didn't have time to think. He quickly stepped over the swag, making sure he didn't move it, and then he placed his palm on the rough hewn stone wall, feeling his way down around the curve and out of sight. Sienna was waiting for him at the bottom of the stairs. Behind her, the crypt was barely visible in the darkness. It was a squat, subterranean chamber with an alarmingly low stone ceiling supported by ancient pillars and brick-vaulted archways. "The weight of the entire basilica rests on these pillars," Langdon thought, already feeling claustrophobic. "Told you," Sienna whispered, her pretty face faintly illuminated by the hint of muted natural light. She pointed to several small arched transoms high on the wall. Light wells, Langdon realized, having forgotten they were here. The wells designed to bring light and fresh air into the cramped crypt opened into deep shafts that dropped down from St. Mark's square above. The window's glass was reinforced with a tight ironwork pattern of 15 interlocking circles, and although Langdon suspected that they could be opened from inside, they were shoulder-height and would be a tight fit. Even if they somehow managed to get through the window into the shaft, climbing out of the shaft would be impossible, since they were 10 feet deep and covered by heavy security grates at the top. In the dim light that filtered through the wells, St. Mark's crypt resembled a moonlit forest, a dense grove of trunk-like pillars that cast long and heavy-looking shadows across the ground. Langdon turned his gaze to the center of the crypt, where a lone light burned at St. Mark's tomb. The basilica's namesake rested in the stone sarcophagus behind an altar, before which there were lines of pews for those lucky who invited to worship here in the heart of Venetian Christendom. A tiny light suddenly flickered to life beside him, and Langdon turned to see Sienna holding the illuminated screen of Ferris's phone. Langdon did a double take. "I thought Ferris said his battery was dead." "He lied," Sienna said, still typing around a lot of things. She frowned at the phone and shook her head. "No signal. I thought maybe I could find the location of Enrico's Dandello's tomb." She hurried over to the light well and held the phone high overhead near the glass, trying to get a signal. Enrico Dandello, Langdon thought, having barely had a chance to consider the Doge before having to flee the area. Despite the current predicament, Their visit to St. Mark's had indeed served its purpose, revealing the identity of the treacherous Doge who severed the heads from horses and plucked up the bones of the blind. Unfortunately, Lang had no idea where Enrico Dandelo's tomb was located, and apparently neither did Ettore Vio. He knows every inch of this basilica, probably of the Doge's palace too. The fact that Ettore hadn't immediately located Dandelo's tomb suggested to London that the tomb was probably nowhere near St. Mark's or the Doge's palace. So where is it? London glanced over at Sienna, who was now standing on a pew that she had moved under one of the light-canned wells. She unlatched the window, swung it open, and held Ferry's phone out into the open space of the shaft itself. The outdoor sound of St. Mark's Square filtered down from above, and London suddenly wondered if maybe there was some way out of here after all. There was a line of folding chairs behind the pew, and London sensed that he might be able to hoist one up into the high well. Maybe the upper grades unlatched from inside as well. London hurried through the darkness towards Siena. He had taken only a few steps when a powerful blow to his forehead knocked him backward. Crumpling to his knees, he thought for an instant that he had been attacked. He had not. He quickly realized, cursing himself for not anticipating that his 6-foot frame far exceeded the height of the walls built for an average human height of more than 1,000 years ago. As he knelt there on the hard stone and let the stars clear, he found himself gazing at the inscription on the floor, Sanctus Marcus. He stared at it a long moment. It was not St. Mark's name in the inscription that struck him, but rather a language in which it was written, Latin. After his day-long immersion in modern Italian, London found himself vaguely disoriented to see St. Mark's name written in Latin, a quick reminder that that language was the lingua franca of the Roman Empire at the time of St. Mark's death. Then a second thought hit London. During the early 13th century, the time of Enrico Dandolo and the Fourth Crusade, the language of power was still very much Latin. A Venetian doge who had brought great glory to the Roman Empire by recapturing Constantinople would never have been buried under the name of Enrico Dandolo. Instead, his Latin name would have been used, Henricus Dandolo. And with that, a long-forgotten image struck him like a jolt of electricity. Although the revelation had come while he was kneeling in the chapel, he knew it was not divinely inspired. More likely it was nothing more than a visual cue that sparkled his mind to make a sudden connection. The image that leaped suddenly from the depth of Langdon's memory was that the Dandolo's Latin name engraved in the worn marble slab embedded in an ornate tile floor. Enricus Dandolo. Langdon could barely breathe as the picture of Doge's simple tomb marker. I've been there. Precisely as the poem had promised, Enrico Dandolo was indeed buried in the Gilded Museum, a mausoleum of holy wisdom, but it's not It's not St. Mark's Basilica. As the truth settled in, London clambered slowly to his feet. I can get a signal, Sienna said, climbing down from the live well and coming toward him. You don't need one, London managed. The gilded mausoleum of holy wisdom. He took a deep breath. I made a mistake. Sienna went pale. Don't tell me we're in the wrong museum. Sienna, London whispered, feeling ill. We're in the wrong country. The end of chapter 75.